Oh, hi. Welcome to Earthwatch, and this week a very special and rather different kind of program for you.
That's right, David. You could say we're all at sea.
Yes, indeed.
Oh.
Most of us have walked through a national park and seen the work done by the park's rangers. These days there are marine national parks as well, with fisheries and wildlife officers from the Department of Conservation, Forests and Lands who spend most of their working hours at sea. Well, we're aboard the Fisheries Patrol vessel Delphinus. She's a 56-footer and she's fitted out with all sorts of electronic gear, radar, weather radar, depth sounder, the whole works, so she can travel very safely all around the waters to the south of Australia. And we've been invited to come aboard the boat and spend a week on board the ship to see what fisheries officers get up to.
Yes, and let's hope it stays calm, David. So far, so good. But
you've taken your seasickness tablets?
I'm taking those seasick tablets, you bet.
Great. Well, Bob Hutton is a fisheries officer, and Bob, you're going to take us around. What have you got in store for us? Where are we going?
Well, what we plan to do, David, is we're heading straight down Port Phillip Bay. We'll have a look at a few points of interest down there, Wedge Light and Pope's Eye. Then we'll steam east through Port Phillip Heads, down Western Port Bay and off to Wilson's Promontory.
Sounds fantastic. So first up, it's Wedge Light. The area of water patrolled by Delphinus is vast, so the ship was designed to move fast, even in rough seas. With nearly 800 horsepower available, Delphinus can cruise at more than 20 knots, even in a gale. At that rate, it takes us just over 2 hours to travel south across Port Phillip Bay to the Heads. That's the entrance to the bay, where we'll find Wedge Light. Well, we're in the middle of what can be one of the roughest pieces of water in the whole of Australia, in fact even the world. It's called the Rip. And right here in the middle of the Rip is Wedge Light, home to a small number of Australasian gannets. They're fantastic birds to watch. Just sit here and we've been looking at them. How many birds are here at Wedge Light?
There's, between Wedge Light here and Pope's Eye in the vicinity, there's about 50 breeding nests, so 50 pairs have been recorded.
Why is it an unlikely colony?
Well, the situation here is, you're probably aware, Wedge Light was for navigation only. Fortunately, this Australasian gannet has made it at home. Now, this Wedge Light here and Pope's Eye, which is also in the vicinity, are the only two places in the world recorded where gannets are actually nesting on man-made structures. So it's quite unique.
These speckly gannets are sub-adults. They haven't yet grown their adult feathers. Wedge Light was once a vital navigation beacon, but as it's no longer needed for shipping, there's a chance it'll be pulled down. The people at Conservation, Forests and Lands are tackling that problem in two ways. They're trying to prevent Wedge Light being dismantled, and they're also building a larger nesting platform over at Pope's Eye, so these gannets won't be left without board and lodging.
At the wheel of the Delphinus is Nobby Clark, who knows the tricky waters of Port Phillip Bay and Bass Strait as well as anyone.
And this is the Rip we're going through now. Is
Yes.
it always this calm?
No, it's unusually calm, ideal for the work we're doing today.
That's for sure.
The waters in this area can get very rough indeed, and Delphinus is way too large to get close to shore. The rubber duck is very fast and very manoeuvrable. So what's the point of this trip, Bob?
Well, what I want to do now, David, is go along beside other amateur boats and check their catch rates, how they're fishing, what type of bait, what the condition of the fish resource is at the moment.
Let's go.
Right.
The coastal waters of southern Victoria are divided into zones, with fisheries and wildlife officers in charge of each one. This coastal network is linked by radio with the network of land-based officers. Each zone is huge, and there are not many officers to go around, so it's a daunting task. For officers on patrol, it's a long, cold day with little time for sleep.
So that's Pope's Eye.
That's correct, yeah, that's Pope's Eye.
What exactly is it, Nobby?
It's an old defensive installation built about 100 years ago. Never finished for lack of money.
Who was it to defend against?
The Russians.
Well, the Russians never came, but the bluestone foundations make an excellent artificial reef for the marine life. Pope's Eye is popular with scuba divers and that other colony of Australasian gannets, and it's here the Department of Conservation, Forests and Lands are extending the nesting platforms for the gannets.
Want to have a look at the catch?
There you go.
Kindly. Oh, beautiful fish. How long have you been fishing this morning?
I came out here at about 6:15 and I had them in the boat by 6:45.
Excellent, excellent. And what sort of bait were you using?
Cuttlefish actually, but don't tell anybody.
Of course, when the fish are this large, there's no need to measure them. These ones are way above the minimum size.
I'll just jot down a few numbers, and that's good, just for my information, that was all. And how long, about 2 or 3 hours you fished for?
I've fished for about, a good 2 hours, but I haven't caught a fish for about an hour and a half.
Any fish on board?
Yes, I got about a dozen.
Oh, mind if I have a quick look?
Yeah.
What sort have we got there?
We got whiting there.
All King George.
Trouble, the small ones there.
Oh, surely not.
I've had them twice that time.
Yeah, we only got about 3 parrotfish down Point Lonsdale way.
Right.
Yeah.
No whiting at all?
No whiting, not a whiting bite. I've got 10, I think.
10. And how long did it take to catch them? A couple of hours? Or?
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours?
About 2, yes. About 2 1/4.
That seems to be about standard here today. Here we go. We've got one
I
coming.
missed him.
Fisheries Patrol, just checking the fish.
Right. How many have you caught?
Oh, only 3.
Right, ready with the line? Yep. Okay. We've still got a stack of information today. What do you do with all this information, Bob, when you've finally
it's very important,
collected it?
David.
Yeah.
You right?
Yep.
What we do with that is basically we collate what we've learnt by talking to the fishermen and to other officers around the area.
Yeah.
And from that is the basis for policies of management, which is extremely important, as you can imagine.
Sure. Yeah. How many national parks are there in this area?
Marine parks, there's about 5. There's 5 in the Melbourne vicinity. There's Pope's Eye, which we saw earlier,
Yep.
Point Nepean, and this one here, which is beautiful, is Swan Bay. It's slightly different with its rules and regulations. Fishing is allowed, but only of line fishing. You can't spearfish or net for fish.
Right.
So it's protecting the area and yet still being able to use
So
it.
people can enjoy it in a
quite
controlled
so.
way.
Quite so.
You're a busy boy, aren't you?
Oh yes, we certainly cover some territory.
Yeah. Well, you've got to nip off and help Maxine pull some cray pots now, don't you?
Yes, back out into the water again.
Crayfishing is another marine activity looked after by the Department of Conservation, Forests and Lands. Bob and his colleagues check boats working along the coast to make sure the crayfishermen stick to the rules.
We're on Harry's crayfish boat just outside the heads in Bass Strait, and we're going to look for some crayfish pots to pull up. Harry, how do you know where to find them?
Well, the echo sounder shows you, and the rocky ledges where the crays live, you find the ledges, and as you put your pot over and you drag your pot in under the ledges, and hopefully the next morning there's crays in them.
Let's hope so.
Yeah,
What's that
sure.
there? Is that one now?
Yeah, looks like it, sure.
Good.
Doing the job, Harry.
Yeah, it's working. Is it not coming up
Pot's on the
now?
way.
There it is.
Yes?
Another cray too.
Oh,
Oh,
There's a couple in it.
it's a beauty, isn't it?
Excellent, Craig.
2.
2.
Try and jump them so it won't take the claws off them aboard the boat. If you drag them across, the claws down through the bottom.
I see.
Good sized bull, Harry.
Yeah. I'll roll this forward now. You got enough there? Put it on my forward hand now.
Would these be average, Bob, or are they
They're a
larger?
good size, Maxine.
Then there's right.
Most of the crayfish are generally a bit smaller than that, mainly because they're a delicacy and a highly prized item. So there's a lot of people, both professional and amateurs.
How many crayfishermen work around Queenscliff?
You're looking at using different number of cray pots. They have a certain allocation each. It might range somewhere between 20 and 30 pots each boat.
How do you manage to police such a large number?
Well, we use mainly our fleet of smaller craft, which we patrol not only on Delphinus, but the smaller boats where we cover a lot of miles on the sea.
It's illegal to take any crayfish, or rock lobster as they're sometimes called, between the start of October and mid-November. And at certain other times of the year, breeding females are protected. And of course, crayfishermen have to wait for a calm day to pull their pots up.
He's a good size, Bob.
He's a butte size, this one, Maxine. This one here is a southern rock lobster. And actually, I'll show you, he's a male. And how we tell that is his set of fins under his tail here are single, they're single ones. The females have double. That's where they hold their eggs, the females. That's the easiest way to tell a male.
Woo!
Oh, he's lively.
He doesn't like that. I must have been tickling.
He's probably about 3 to 4 kilograms in weight.
Okay, and how do you test him for size?
For size, this main head section is what they call the carapace. I'll move him around without losing him. And what I do with my special ruler, I put it between his eyes there, and I see that the back of his carapace is way down here, so he's well and truly above the legal limit.
So it only needs to come to there for it to be legal.
That section there is 11 centimetres.
I see. So he's
well and
safe,
truly
isn't he?
size.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful crayfish.
And you think he's been down there a long time?
I would say he'd have to be a good 20 years old, this fella.
Gosh, how can you tell? Just from the size?
Yes, that's right. The department does a lot of research on growth rates, and from that they can estimate ages.
Very healthy specimen, that one.
We pop him back in the well?
Yes, let's.
With the others.
Well, that crayfish may smell nice on the dinner table, but here's something that smells pretty foul. It's a horrible pile of stinking seaweed right around the bay ahead of me, and all around large portions of the edge of Western Port Bay here. There are great big thick piles of this seagrass that's built up for some strange reason. And to the fishermen, it's a sign that something's gone wrong. Well, the members of the Conservation Forests and Lands Authority have been trying to check out the problem of the seagrass and just find out what the problem might be and how it can be solved. Western Port Bay is mostly mudflats dissected by deep channels. From the air at low tide, the shoreline looks like a vast river delta. Lots of small creeks meandering through chocolate-coloured banks to the deeper channels. Well, I'm in the middle of a wide mudflat on the edge of Western Port Bay, and there's really nothing here but, well, mud, filled with shells and grit and shale, and it forms a really sticky, viscous brew, a bit like quicksand, so taking each step is incredibly difficult. Now, the mud's here, and in fact it covers the edges of this huge area of Western Port Bay right around both sides. Normally, it's held together by a weed called swan grass or seagrass, and it's a very, very important weed, and you'll see here that there's nothing here. There's no weed left. Now, the question is why? Everyone we spoke to seemed to have their own pet theory as to why the seagrass had disappeared. Some blamed overfishing, others blamed pollution. Either way, seagrass is important for the fish and other marine life, and for the birds that have come to depend on Western Port for their very survival. For that reason, the marine science laboratories at Queenscliff have been studying the seagrass community for more than a decade. Seagrasses exchange nutrients with both the mud and the seawater, and they also act as a brake, slowing water currents and damping out the action of waves. Without the seagrass, the water becomes cloudy and erosion can increase. And perhaps most importantly, fish lose the shelter of the grass they need as a nursery for hatchlings.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, David, how are you?
Oh, fine, mate.
I'll grab the rope for you.
Nice morning.
Oh, it's lovely.
Here's the rope.
Some of the older fishermen believe the seagrasses are not dying out, just going through part of a long-term cycle. And they should know. They've fished the area all their lives.
Right, David, this is Basil. Basil's one of our...
G'day, Basil.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too,
fishermen.
mate. Terrific. Good to meet you, Basil.
Been doing it for quite some time too, Basil, haven't
Yes, well, many years.
Yeah.
you? Too many to remember.
Pretty windy this morning.
Yes, it's rather too windy.
Yeah. A bit hard on the arms, eh?
Yes, yes.
Let's give you a hand and we'll get this net in.
Yeah, very well.
Right, let's
Thank
do it.
you.
Cord. Okay.
Good. Well, take this part. Mind your toe.
Yep.
What?
What's the main fish you
Well, the
aim
main
to catch?
fish you try and catch is whiting.
How have they been in the last few years?
Quite good.
Yeah.
We can't complain.
Uh-huh.
No. It's, a lot of people complain about, not being good, but still and all, they're never happy. That's the trouble.
Can't please them all, can you?
You can't please them, that's the problem.
Some of them reckon the seagrass has got a few problems. Have you
It's
noticed
had
that?
Many problems over the other side of the bay here.
Is that worse now than it's been? Or?
Not in this corner over here. It's been quite good. It hasn't changed that much.
What's the problem, do you think?
It seems to grow best where there's plenty of fresh water, fresh salt water, like in this corner here.
Yeah.
The tide comes up past San Remo with a flood tide, and it keeps this corner replenished with clean salt water. See, that's.
So you think there's a bit of stuff flowing into Western Port?
I think there must be something on that side of the bay.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this one. That's the other side. That's a big white, isn't it? No,
Floaty. Nice size floaty.
mind the prickles on it.
Got some calamari there, have we? What else have we got there?
Not much. We only got one whiting, so you'll have to get all the same thing that's on the top the other day.
He's a very nice calamari, that one, Basil.
Yeah.
Funny season, this, talking to the fishermen early in the season.
Yes, he's a nice fish.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it? Well, thanks, Basil. It's been really interesting to come out here and talk to you and see what it's like from your point of view. It's pretty obvious, I guess, that the seagrass problem isn't as bad as we thought. I guess people have got to watch that pollution at the other end of the bay, though, and make sure that doesn't damage the seagrass and the nurseries for the fish. But I guess as long as the fishermen look after their areas and maintain them properly, don't overfish the areas, then you're going to have fish here for a long time to come. Lots of nice dinners like these ones. I'm going back to Delphinus now, and we're going to head off steaming east to Wilson's Promontory.
Most visitors to Wilson's Promontory head for Tidal River, a popular camping spot. But there's plenty more to see. All around the coast there are cliffs, coves and beaches, and many picturesque islands. One of the prettiest spots is Refuge Cove, which, as its name suggests, provides a refuge for boat people. In the old days, passing sailboats came here in rough weather, and today yachts travelling around the world often call in for a few days. It's beautiful here above and below the waterline, and the conservation, forests and lands people have to work very hard to keep it that way.
This island's called Kanauna, and it has the only breeding colony of Australian fur seals on Wilson's Prom. As you can see, there are lots of mothers and their babies in there, and we'd really like to land on the island and have a closer look, but it's just a bit too rough for that today. Australian fur seals, like all the animals on these islands, are now fully protected, but it wasn't always the case. Last century, sealers almost wiped out the entire fur seal population by hunting them for their skins. Fortunately, in 1891, hunting was banned, and the seal population quickly built up again, so that today there are just thousands of them along the southern Australian coast.
Seals may be awkward and noisy on land, but underwater they are silent and graceful, and they love playing with divers. These divers are from Bob's department. They are taking photos and making notes, using waterproof paper of course, to build up a record of the marine life for future reference. There are many species of beautiful sea creatures and plants all around the promontory, but at Canouna Island, the underwater scenery is spectacular, with sheer cliffs extending to the ocean floor. A marine reserve has been declared for a distance of up to 300 metres around the islands and the southern tip of the Prom. It's fun to dive with the seals, but it can be dangerous. Pups and old or injured animals are easy prey for great white sharks and may attract them. Most fishermen regard seals as nuisances because they also eat fish, and they sometimes get caught in their nets. But mostly the seals are left alone to play slippery dips on the rocks and frolic in the clear waters of Bass Strait.
The seals are a lot of fun to watch, but so too are the fish. In clean water like this, which is well supplied with oxygen, the colour and variety of fish and other marine creatures is astounding.
Victorians know that their beautiful coastline is very close to town. Just a couple of hours' drive southeast of Melbourne will bring you to the proposed Bunurong Marine Reserve near Cape Patterson. It's spectacular and it's handy, so it attracts lots of visitors, people who like angling, spearfishing, studying the sea creatures, or just taking a lazy stroll on one of the vast rock platforms. Most of these visitors don't realise just how precious or easily damaged this area is. The cliffs are rich in fossils, and the platforms are among the best of their type to be found anywhere on the southern coast.
The rock platform doesn't stop at the low water mark along here. In fact, it continues out to sea below the water for perhaps a kilometre. It's broken up by wave action, of course, into deep gullies and reefs, and it makes a marvellous complex habitat for marine life. There's something like 152 species of marine plants being found along here and about 86 species of fish. So it's no wonder that the fishermen around the area, spear fishermen and line fishermen and so on, really find this a fascinating part of the coast. But the reef itself here, the platform, also has its treasures. It's been used for years as a kind of natural outdoor classroom by schools and interpretation groups, and Maxine's joined one of those interpretation groups this morning to see what kind of creatures live here in the intertidal zone.
Harry Bridle's the Department of Conservation, Forest and Lands ranger who, along with other rangers, runs rock rambles or excursions for members of the public. Hi Harry, what have you found today?
Well, we've found the most incredible array of stuff. You always find fascinating things in rock pools. What we've got here is one of my favourite creatures. It's a creature called a brittle star. Its defence is to drop one of its arms off. And in fact, you can see there on the end, it's got one of its little arms missing.
You girls said that you liked slimy things, and this is one of my favourite slimy things. It's an elephant snail, and the most important thing is always to wet your hands when you're handling something like this. The idea behind that is that it's a very wet environment, and your hand is as dry as can be. I've got two of my wife's favourite animals here. They're called hairy stone crabs. And these guys, well actually they're girls, and I can tell that if you boys can see, that flap there is a triangle, and on the girls it's very broad. It's actually the abdomen, and that one's a girl too. You can see the triangular abdomen. On the boys, that's very narrow.
What do you call this?
Aha! Any of you kids know?
Yes.
What is it?
Sea urchin?
It's a sea urchin.
It looks like it's had a crew cut.
It does actually. There are other sea urchins that have nice big spines. So we'll put that back. This one doesn't have a shell at all. That's a wonderful creature, and I'll sprinkle a bit of water on it. It's called a sea hare. Maxine, you can feel a shell hidden inside there.
Oh yes, so he carries his shell inside.
A very, very, very light shell inside. You guys want to pass that around? Now maybe it might purple on one of you. And I'll get my next crab out.
Oh.
You can hold this one.
That looks like a piece of seaweed, doesn't it?
It just looks like a piece of seaweed. Oh, tremendous.
I poked him and he
Let's have a look, Peter. Ah, yeah.
Why do you think it does that?
Well, as you can see, these rocks are a treasure trove of all sorts of wonderful creatures, and they're obviously well worth preserving. Right now, David's talking to John Tomkin, who's helping make that happen.
John is one of the marine biologists working at the Marine Science Laboratories in Queenscliff.
So, John, the plan is to make this whole area into a marine park, is it?
Yeah, it's a very special park, David, with a conservation zone in the centre and two buffer zones on either side of it.
So in the conservation region, that's just looking only, is it? No one can take things away or fish or...
It's look and see, basically, and exploring the animals and plants that are in that area.
So what do the locals think about this?
It's been interesting. There's been a mixture of reaction from these people. Some are for it and some are against it.
Are you trying to assess people's various interests in the place?
Very much so, David. We've had public meetings with angling clubs, conservation societies and the local governments.
And how do you find out what they think?
Well, we've had a Have Your Say brochure here, and we've had a marvellous response from that.
Right. Now, what happens with the information you find out?
All those submissions will be looked at, and they will be used to form the final management plan.
So you're being very careful to take people's opinions into account?
Yes, most definitely.
Well, it's a pretty tricky juggling act you've taken on. I hope it works out well for the park here.
I hope so too.
This one here, I won't pull it off because it's stuck down. In fact, that's another thing you've all got to be very careful of.
These marine national parks need special care, and those custodians of the coastline, the fisheries and wildlife officers, take a special pride in them. They have good reason to be proud. The coastline is not just beautiful, it's teeming with a rich diversity of marine life, much of it adapted to live here and nowhere else. The fisheries officers are well trained and determined to keep it that way. Nothing would make them happier than to know that this stretch of coastline will be alive and well 100, even 200 years from now.